Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Day. I'm the chair of the Citizens' Assembly on Gender Equality, and I'm here chatting with Mary Claire O'Sullivan, the secretary to the Assembly. The Citizens' Assembly is resuming online on Saturday, 17 October, after an enforced break due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This will be the first time an Irish Citizens' Assembly meets online. In this podcast, we are going to chat about why and how we are doing this. We got off to a great start. We had a launch of the Assembly in Dublin Castle in January, and then we had our first full weekend in Malahide in February. We have a great group of citizens. They're very enthusiastic about the topic, and they were beginning to get to know each other in Malahide. And then, of course, COVID struck. But this was a terrible shock for everyone. And so we waited for a while in the hope of being able to meet again in person. My personal preference was, and still very much is, for face-to-face meetings. But gradually, we realized that that couldn't happen anytime soon. So Mary Claire, let's go back over the gradual steps we took before deciding to move online.
Well, obviously we were aware with so many social and business interactions going online, this was an option we could pursue for the Assembly. And our research indicated that initially, like ourselves, a number of other countries such as Belgium and Scotland decided to hold off moving online. Like us, I think they hoped the COVID risk would diminish and face-to-face meetings would become possible again. And I think this reflects a general view of members and academic experts in the field that face-to-face meetings get the best out of a citizens' assembly. However, in the UK and Australia, they took a different decision and they transferred some of their assemblies online. So we spoke to those involved to find out about their experience. One important difference is that in both cases, most of their meetings had been completed. They were towards the end of their work. They were finalising their recommendations. And as Catherine said earlier, we were at a different stage as we had only had one full meeting. Another interesting fact is that it took both the UK and Australia 3 weekends online to cover what they had planned in one full weekend face-to-face meeting. And this indicated to us that it's not a simple matter of transferring the same approach online. The assembly model really needs to be significantly adapted for an online setting.
Yes, and that experience of others and the research that you did gave us very useful input for our rather reluctant decision to go online. I think both of us over the summer were still hoping that we would be able to meet together in the autumn. And in fact, we had worked out elaborate plans with the hotel for keeping everyone safe and compliant with government rules. But once the new restrictions were announced, we could see that we had no option. We either had to move online or cancel the entire assembly until an unknown future date. So that meant that you and your team were very busy running the assembly online because it's so different from how we ran it in Malahide. So could you just take us through how we prepared for the shift to Zoom and the challenges that an online assembly poses?
Yes, and of course the members' views are absolutely crucial in all this. So we started off by finding out what our members thought about going online by sending them a survey. And as well as asking them about how they felt about moving online, we also asked them about their experience with technology, whether they had access to a quiet space in their home, whether they had the broadband and IT equipment that they would need. So 85% said they would be willing to participate in an online meeting, with only 7% saying they would not. Generally, members had the broadband access and equipment needed to participate. 75% had used video calls, with most having experience of Zoom. So we did research other platforms, but we chose Zoom for this reason. As a pilot run, we decided to hold an online seminar in July, and the seminar covered 2 themes: the public submissions received during our consultation process and the impact of COVID on our gender equality mandate. So in developing the seminar programme, we spoke to online learning experts. We spoke to our colleagues in the UK who would use Zoom to complete their climate change assembly. And all of this information led us to decide to pre-record video presentations and send them to citizens in advance. And these presentations are all available on our website. We also decided to try and replicate the roundtable discussions at the face-to-face meetings of the Assembly. And we did this by assigning members to small discussion groups, generally of around 8 people. And we also offered Zoom training to all our members. So we surveyed members again after the seminar, and the results were generally very positive. The vast majority, around 82%, had no technical difficulties, and they agreed that they could contribute effectively online to the event. Nearly 85% of respondents said they would, or they probably would, participate in a full online weekend meeting if public health restrictions continued. And we felt the small discussion groups also worked well. However, at the same time, over half of respondents agreed with the statement that an online format was not suitable for the Assembly, and most also said that the group discussions were more dynamic face-to-face. For example, one member said, "The difficulty online is that you cannot replicate the informal debates that happen at a live event." So we were keeping this under review, but then, Catherine, things changed again.
Yes, unfortunately they did. And the new public health restrictions on indoor gatherings were tightened in August. And it became very clear at that point that there'd be no possibility of meeting in person in the autumn. So to avoid losing momentum and to eliminate uncertainty, we took the decision to move meetings online for the remainder of this year. Now, as you've just told us, our members had indicated their willingness to go online, and the survey also guided us to limiting online time to maximum 2 2-hour sessions, because as we've all learned in recent months, working online is very tiring. And as well as that, given family and other commitments, citizens indicated that online meetings should be just 1 day per weekend. So in the light of this, we took a number of decisions. As you said, we decided to pre-record presentations so that people would know in advance about the issues for each session, and the presentations would be circulated in advance. And we did point out to citizens that most of them would not be replayed during the meetings. We also asked members to provide written feedback on the videos to help prepare the discussions at the meeting. And reflecting the best practice in online learning, the videos and presentations that we do circulate will be much shorter than standard presentations. Absolutely no more than 12 to 15 minutes, and generally a lot less. Also, to be as close as possible to face-to-face meetings, in the videos, we're going to use a mix of expert presentations, presentations from advocacy groups, and perhaps what's most popular of all, the personal experiences of people affected by the issues we're discussing. So our aim is to organize the sessions so as to maximize the time our citizens have for discussions. And this means we've had to come up with a whole new formula. We're now asking citizens to think in advance of each meeting, what issues do they want to raise in the discussion groups? And we're also asking them to begin thinking about areas where they would like to see the Assembly make recommendations. And like most things in life, there are pluses and minuses to going online. How do you see this, Mary Claire?
Well, I'm sure we'll both have a more conclusive view on this towards the end of the process. But some of the pluses I'd see right now, just in recording the shorter videos for the session, this seems to encourage speakers to be concise and clear. And it also allows us to have more speakers and hear more perspectives, which is definitely a positive. The approach we've taken also maximises the time for discussion among the citizens in their smaller groups, so it maximises that time spent interacting in smaller discussion groups. For some members, not having to travel to Dublin for meetings could also possibly be an advantage. I suppose the minuses then, well, there is a lack of time for plenary sessions and for the whole group to interact together. And of course, we're missing that informal contact between the citizens at breakfast, to the coffee breaks, getting to know each other in sort of more informal chats. Some citizens may be less comfortable interacting online than in person. And also, it's not possible for media and interest groups to accompany in real time in the same way as they would have been able to before in the face-to-face meetings.
Yes, and that's a real issue, because we're both very keen to have the maximum transparency attached to the process. It would be great for those outside the Assembly to be able to see the citizens at work on topics that are relevant to every one of us. And so we have worked to come up with a compromise to this particular problem.
Yeah, we both believe that public engagement and involvement is an important part of the Assembly, but the move online means that this will have to be done a bit differently. So the opening and closing sessions of the meetings will be recorded and they'll be transmitted on our website. There'll be a small time delay for some technical reasons. As with the face-to-face meetings, the breakout room discussions will not be streamed, but feedback from these discussions will be videoed and they'll be made available on the day of the meeting. And all presentations and videos will be published on the website again on the day of the meeting.
Yes, and we'll be trying out all of these ideas on 17th of October when we will have our first online discussion. And that first session is going to be on equality in leadership and public life. And what comes next?
Then after that, in November and December, we'll focus on work and economic inequality. And then we'll move on to cover the topic of care in the new year. So we'll deal with that topic either through 2 days online in January and February, or one weekend in person in January, just depending on the COVID situation at that time.
Well, that's great. I think we can make online sessions work on the different topics that are set out in the Oireachtas resolution. But I think we're both still hoping that we'll be able to meet again in person for the end of the Assembly. It will be very important for the citizens to meet as an Assembly and not only in small discussion groups, so that we can decide together what recommendations we want to make at the end of the process. I really hope we'll be able to do this in Malahide in the spring. But if not, we will all have become used to the online Assembly by then, and we will find ways of making the Assembly as inclusive as possible. Of course, in deciding on the right format, our top priority will continue to be the health and welfare of our members, and we will be consulting with them on an ongoing basis, and we'll make any changes that are needed to the format and to the arrangements for the meetings on the basis of that feedback. And as always, all of our presentations and reports will be available on the website. So I think we're both excited about and looking forward to having the first Irish Citizens Assembly online on 17th of October. Thank you very much.
Thank you.